Hey, what's up guys? Node Investor here. It is Thursday, October 31st, the end of October. Here we are approaching the last 2 months of 2019. And just going to take a quick look at Bitcoin in general. Quickly, we'll cycle through some of the other names, but just want to post an update here after the very strong move we saw here a few days back over the weekend. The price action has just kind of been in pullback mode, which is not surprising after such a big move. Remember, from wick to wick, the price moved 40% for Bitcoin and much higher for many of these other alts. And so they are in pullback mode. But as I mentioned in my last video, it's important to keep an eye on the higher time frames right now. Sure, you can look at the lower time frames, the 1 hour chart or the 4 hour chart, and say, this is an ascending triangle, or it's a bull flag, or it's an symmetrical pattern that's about to break out bullish or bearish, but at the end of the day, after such a big move, it's not unusual to see a little bit of a breather, a little bit of a pause to let the prior move be kind of consolidated, let the charts digest it, if you will. And so that's what we're looking at here, looking at the price action of Bitcoin here. There's a couple of things that I want to point out. First, looking at the moving averages, we can see the 10 and the 22 EMA on the daily have crossed over and are now catching up, and you're seeing price starting to finally meet that point here. And so on the daily chart, this is actually quite positive at this point. The pullback has been on lower and lower volume compared to the big volume that we saw on the way up. So you're seeing this pullback into these moving averages. That's positive. The levels that I want to see hold on the daily basis, a daily close below this range would be negative. So looking at the general prior resistance, now support, that 8600 to 8800 level is where I want to see it kind of at the most bottom out. So even if there's a continuation on this downtrend here on this pullback, I don't want to see it close below that. That would be very negative, which starts to show a little bit deeper of a reversal on that pullback. And right now, the fact that it's still above even just the 10 EMA on the daily is positive, and the fact that it's still above this key breakout level is also positive. So that's what I'm looking at there. Looking at the upside, if we zoom out a little bit, we got to remember that this broader move was a break of this big descending triangle pattern, and trend lines are subjective here, and so you got to remember that here. But you're noticing that price did push above this general trend line, was not really able to hold on the daily basis much above that, but so far is consolidating above that point. If you look at the lower end of that broader pattern that broke down, around that 9400 was kind of that breakdown point. Price is basically in and around that level. So there's a little bit of a battle going on here at prior support, now looking like resistance here. And so this is where a consolidation is taking place right now, which is kind of normal. Like I'm saying, it's not unusual to see this, but I'm just looking at the price action. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing, is what's the price action, what's the volume patterns, and then key support resistance levels. Going back to the moving averages, I do want to show the broader moving averages here. I'm going to zoom out, and if I'm always paying attention to these kind of shorter term moving averages, just because they give you a very quick assessment as to what's the general direction of the trend and where is price trading relative to those shorter moving averages. But if you look at the longer ones, I'm going to drop the 50 EMA and the 100 simple moving average onto my chart. In fact, let me take off the shorter moving averages here. And if you focus on just the longer term moving averages here, this recent move pushed price back over that 50 EMA long-term moving average, which is good. But notice the 100 day is right where that resistance was found. So if we zoom in here a little bit, this purple line here is the 100-day moving average, and we can see that this is where the battle has been taking place lately, is right below that, right above that 50. And so it's a little bit of an interesting resistance confluence here. You've got this prior trend line, which price is trading right around. You've got that 9400 level, which price has been bouncing around above this prior support. And then you've got these longer term moving averages, which are kind of where the battle is taking place here right now. So definitely watching it. Like I said, overall, the big picture, I'm bullish considering this longer term chart, the weekly chart. That was a very bullish reversal on the weekly chart last week. It had an opportunity to really start selling off. Undercut was a big shakeout followed by a big reversal, massive short squeeze. So from the big picture perspective, things are still looking positive. It looks like that may have been the low. Obviously, if this candle gets taken out, that's a very negative sign, completely invalidates that. But right now, things are looking positive. And so from a big picture perspective, I'm still liking the price action so far. I've got some long exposures, primarily just on Bitcoin at this point. Some small quick flips on some of the alt smaller cap names. We'll look at some of those here shortly, but mostly just focused on Bitcoin for a number of reasons. We've got some big catalysts coming up over the next 6 months, kind of year end, this big weekly reversal. So right now I'm liking BTC, but like I said, if it starts to lose this 8,600 level, that'd be a big negative. So certainly something to be watching out here over the next couple of days. On the upside, if it can finally take out this resistance level, the next big target is going to be around that 11K mark, which is where we were seeing a lot of resistance here in the recent past. So from a bigger perspective, right, over the next couple of days, weeks, that sort of thing, this is kind of where I'm looking at as far as the next big target if price continues to march higher. So 11K, and then of course psychological 10K, which we saw a brief breach of here last weekend, but has not been able to close above that here just yet. So that's it for the BTC side of things. Just watching that on the lower time frames, we can certainly take a look at some of this pattern here. You can say this is maybe a symmetrical pattern. Looked like it was breaking down yesterday, but as long as it stays above this level, I've just been scaling in, adding back to some of the longs here. I have maintained some long exposure through this consolidation, but just been adding in a little bit more on these dips, and as long as it holds that price level I'm talking about, I'll stay with it here. Going to some of these other names, and I'm going to stick to the daily charts for the sake of keeping with this theme of kind of just watching these higher time frames. I'm going to move those moving averages back in here. And so let's go to some of the other big movers that we saw as of late here. Going to names like ETH. I'm going to focus from the BTC side here. So ETH BTC had that big breakdown when Bitcoin rallied. Many alts did because they were just not able to keep up with Bitcoin, if you will. And a little bit of a bounce, basically was a bear flag bounce, and is now back in pullback mode. We can see these moving averages are bearishly correlated and trending lower with price trading below them. So right now, from that perspective, ETH versus BTC does not look positive, maybe forming a little bit of a big head and shoulders here on this daily chart. So don't want to see price close below this zone. If it does, really starts to look negative very quick, which, as you guys know, I use ETH as a little bit of a barometer for some of the alt market, right? How is it trading relative to Bitcoin as a whole? Certainly, there's going to always be something moving in the alt space, and we'll look at some of those here. But as a whole, how are they trading? And I like to use, the Ethereum price versus Bitcoin as a good barometer for that, and many of the other big cap names in general. And right now we're seeing a little bit of a pullback from that perspective here. Looking at Tron, another big mover as of late, going to Tron BTC here as well. Again, outperformed on the way up, and this was on the back of on the front running of some anticipated news, some partnership announcements, which has already been revealed. And here we are just kind of seeing this pullback, but notice this is the daily time frame. Notice the 10 EMA is still way down here, and price is just kind of giving a normal pullback, which is a good illustration of, don't chase those big moves when something is that extended on the daily chart, even over just the short-term 10 EMA. A pullback is normal. It's kind of expected there, and this is just a good example of putting the risk reward in your favor. And that's really what trading is all about. It's about probabilities. It's about managing risk. And when something is extremely extended on the short term, I could keep going higher for a little bit more, but it's generally not a good idea in terms of risk reward to go chasing after those big moves. What you want to look for instead are these type of pullbacks, and you want to see if they start to hold up above these key support levels, prior breakout points. The volume, how is it looking on the pullback? Clearly moving lower. And so that's what you want to look for. That makes for a better risk reward entry if you're looking to buy on a pullback, use a trend following strategy, that sort of thing. But in the big picture, just kind of a normal pullback after a pretty strong move, something to make note of there. But they are in pullback mode still. Looking at Neo BTC here, another one that was really outperforming. Very stretched again. Yesterday looked like the pullback was over. I was thinking this is a good opportunity to start looking at that pullback entry here. Let me show the trend line was broken, volume was coming back in, rallied, but right now it's kind of just giving it up. So we'll see how this one acts here. But near term, that's the level of support to be watching here. And again, on the daily time frame, just pulling back right to that 10 EMA, which is still way down here around 1080 on that BTC pair. Volume on the pullback again is favorable in terms of the bullish scenario. Lower volume here. The big wick here, of course, at the top, but very extended in the near term. Got to remember, even versus Bitcoin, you know, in a number of days, this one went up 57% on the USD side, even more considering the strong move in Bitcoin. So many of these names are still very much in pullback mode. If we go to ontology very quickly, just cycling through a few more, same scenario, still above the daily moving averages, but still pulling back here a little bit. OMG, same thing here. So I'm liking them more here now than just a few days ago because they were very extended and the risk was much higher. The probability was higher of a pullback. Now that we've seen that, it's going to be interesting to see if do they get another leg higher, do they start to form a little bit of a base at this point and then move up from there. Going to some of the other names that are on the alerts here as of late, there's always something moving. Let me look at my other screen here. It's mostly just been small cap names other than Neo. Gas is on there. Remember Gas? That's a name from yesteryear. Neo Gas, and it's not unusual when Neo starts to move. You often see this one moving here, but you know, you can see here on the 4-hour chart has just been trending higher here, following that strong move that we saw in Neo yesterday and a couple days before. Even over the weekend, I saw Wabi popping up on the alerts here and still moving up. And this is, you're talking small cap names here. I mean, we're talking, you know, sub $20 million market cap names. So certainly very small, but have been in play here as of late here. IOST was on the list here. Let's see how that chart looks. You know, again, smaller cap, lower volume names, but certainly trending. But look at these big wicks. It's really hard to trade those when they have a 27% wick on some of those. Let's see here, what else? Nulls. Just kind of cycling through some of these names that are popping up on the other chart here. Nulls has been on a pretty decent trend here. AMB was hitting the alerts today, showing some follow through after that initial spike a couple of days ago. Pretty good pause right at these moving averages. Looks like he wants to get going again. So definitely one to keep an eye on there. Again, small cap. Ocean. Oh man, now we're getting really deep at the bottom here. Ocean protocol there on the move. Atom popped up on the alerts here today just a bit ago. Looking like a little good power pivot showing up there. Volume spike on that 4-hour chart as it breaks out of some near-term resistance. Big picture, this one was in pullback mode. Looks like maybe that's finally wrapping up here. I was liking this one here because it had that big consolidation, was really looking like it wanted to get going again, had a false breakout and then just really broke lower once Bitcoin moved. But this one looks to be bouncing back here, so definitely one I'd be watching here right now. But that's going to be it, guys. Just going back to Bitcoin here, wanted to give a quick update on some of the price action we're seeing. Again, I'm sounding like a broken record here, but just kind of keep an eye on the bigger picture. Focus on the bigger time frames, the daily charts, even the weekly chart if you're looking at you know, longer term holds and that sort of thing. But from a trading perspective, it's pretty much just been consolidation mode here for a few days, just digesting some of that big move. But we are coming to a little bit of a head here now that we've had about a week almost, you know, 5-6 days worth of pause after that big move. It's going to be interesting to see if these alts give another leg higher going into the weekend, or if that pullback continues and that's the end of the move. Was it just a flash in the pan scenario? I doubt it, but anything can happen in this space. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.